Crip-time in the kitchen. Cooking is my special interest. I'm a
grocery hobbyist.
I love making good food, daydreaming about what I'm going to cook, meals I'm going to have, all of it. But I also have limited energy, so things often look a little different around here. I'm stupidly fortunate to have my parents' kitchen as my studio because I still live at home, which in some ways does give me more flexibility to implement accommodations for myself, have more equipment which can help. I made a video on how to feed yourself last year that did quite well, so consider this a part 2 filled with even more accommodations I'm using to accommodate my low energy, neurodivergence, as how I use the space has continued to evolve and I've refined how I feed myself through the good and the bad times so it's as enjoyable as consistently as possible. One glorious addition to the space has been this mat, which is like the texture they put under swings in playgrounds. I think it's made from recycled rubber. Anyway, it's like standing in a pair of Hoka shoes. It's so supportive. I initially got it as a non-slip docking station for Merlin, which he has taken to like a pro, but I also move it around when I'm chopping at the bench for a period of time or standing stirring at the stove, and my body really thanks me for it. As I get older and continue to live at home, I've become much less tolerant of dirty dishes living on the bench. To me, a clear bench really equals a clear mind and makes preparing food, a meal, so much more enjoyable and accessible. I thought I wouldn't get away with this, but I've taken a bit of a tough love housemates approach to this problem and made a designated tray area where I put everyone else's dirty dishes as they accumulate, because I'm the only one really who does my dirty dishes as I create them, and that has often meant that I end up doing other people's washing up because I'm washing up more frequently. Call this passive aggressive, and obviously this only works because of the privilege of having enough bench space, but something about putting them on a tray, keeping them contained, feels so different in my mind than them being just strewn across the bench. And now I'm not doing other people's dirty dishes all the time, and as a result my inner resentment is a lot lower, and the inner peace I feel when I'm in the kitchen has been greatly improved. I have recently acquired some new gadgets which are really earning their keep. My old big blender, which I've had for 10 years, wasn't really earning its keep. I don't really make a lot of smoothies these days. That's on a hiatus, and the available bench space that created signaled to me one thing. It was time to get a microwave. I didn't grow up with one. I've only really used one while house sitting or at friends' places, and I'm so relieved to be in the microwave containing years of my life. Heating up leftovers, including from frozen, has never been so easy. Not having to get out a pot and wooden spoon to heat something up and then have to wash them by hand is just a glorious feeling. It's saving me energy because I'm doing less washing up because all the microwave safe stuff can go straight into the dishwasher. I frustratingly didn't get one where you can turn the beep off. I was so confident I'd chosen one where you could do that. That was just an epic fail. Yeah, and it's really stupidly loud, so good one, Phoebe. Even though I find it like shocking how much condensation builds up on the inside, I'm reminding myself this is still 1,000 times easier to clean than an air fryer. And I do think they can rack up a bit of a smell, but I have found the old microwave some watered down vinegar for a few minutes trick to work perfectly. It really Control-Alt-Deletes any of that savoury, smelly residue. And I also decided to buy a simple hand blender. I'm usually cooking for just 1 or 2 people, and I like making small amounts of sauces, marinades, which the blades of our previous blender didn't always catch, and pulling out my mum's enormous and so heavy food processor just felt unappealing. And this has really cut down on like the food noise or like mental barrier to cooking. I still have a lot of unlearning to do because there's like program ways within you in terms of how you go about cooking something, but I am so confident that it really makes so much more sense for my style of cooking. I love that cleanup is so quick with one of these too. You can put it in the dishwasher, but honestly I'm finding if you just blend it in some water once you've made your thing, that does most of the cleaning for you, and then it just needs a rinse. This leads me to food prep. Because of the different equipment I've been using on the reg now, that's created a much more hospitable environment for doing meal prep. The microwave and freezer are working in total harmony. Microwave, dishwasher, same. And I know microwaves and freezers are not very sexy to talk about, but as much as I love cooking food from scratch all the time, it's just not realistic for me, especially during the week. to expect myself to be able to like maintain that method of preparing meals, I just don't have the energy or the bandwidth. And there's always a lot more food waste if I go down that route, because I find it really hard to follow through on what I've previously committed to making. In the How to Feed Yourself video, I said how going to the shops every few days helps me with food waste and the mental load of meal planning, but currently studying and where my health is at, I'm definitely not able to do that. So using my freezer seriously to store meals, prepped ingredients, snacks, breakfast components has been game changing. I don't think you need freezer molds to store food well in the freezer. I'm enjoying using them, but I'm also using like ice cube trays and just wrapping things in freezer paper and storing them in Ziploc bags. I'm lucky to have above average freezer space right now, but still not infinite. So I found having something prepped in each category of breakfast, main meal, snacks, ingredient prep ensures I'm well supported in the range of what I have and that there's like good turnover. It's also a good way to compartmentalize what's in there so I don't forget. Having a good amount of choice is also helping prevent me from getting like freezer ick towards the foods I've prepped. I can use what I've made in lots of different ways, still applying some like spontaneity and creativity towards what's in there, or I can just eat it straight like the fab fuel that it is, and that balance seems to be working really well for me. I do also keep a freezer inventory on the fridge, but I'm finding because I'm dipping into the freezer so much more frequently, it's honestly not that hard to remember everything I have. Usually I'm an out of sight, out of mind type of person, but the freezer at the moment seems to be an exception. I do think it's important to only put foods that you consider top tier in your freezer. I found I still want to make like the healthiest types of foods and meals and recipes that I make fresh, and actually using the freezer more for like the next rung down delicious weeknight type meals has given me more bandwidth for making those, I don't know, like fresh, lots of fresh ingredients type of meals. I mentioned this in my last video, but a really thick book of Sudoku puzzles has become my favourite trusty cooking pal this year. I really like cooking to be a completely analogue time in my day, and doing a Sudoku while cooking helps me keep it that way. I'm not getting sick of them. I find them really mentally stimulating, and they just fill in that idle time while something's simmering on the stove, if dinner's ready and I'm waiting for others to eat. Sudoku's my pal. I think they also help with emotional regulation, because in those lulls when you're cooking, I can often feel really hangry and irritable. So having something to switch to that's absorbing and passes the time is really beneficial. My dog loves slow feeders, food puzzles. No surprises, he's a Labrador. But a good routine for us has been giving him one when I come downstairs and I'm thinking about what to make for lunch, because it gives me just a bit more mental space, physical space to think about what I actually want to eat. Since it's a meal I don't really plan ahead for, I just cobbled together something from what's there, and that's just resulted in a smoother lunch experience. As for me, personal space crowding at the wrong times can make me a little bit cranky. Another cooking accommodation I've given myself and just accepted the consequences of is not forcing myself to wear aprons. So I'll occasionally cause stains on my clothes, but I have decided I can live with that. I know it is kind of good practice, but I find it to just be another barrier to cooking. I really don't love how they sit on my body, how they can restrict certain parts of your body. Maybe I'll sew on one day that really works for me, but for now I'm putting my energy in the kitchen into other things. And finally, in this cooking category, I've mentioned before how I like to split up cooking dinner, so it's in two parts. I like start prepping at 4 p.m. and then come back to finish it closer to 6 p.m. But I'm further enjoying like using appliances to let things cook while I go and do something else. Having like a timer on, especially at the end of the day, can really cultivate a bit more focus and productivity. And I'll often be able to just like do a bit of housework or finish a task that takes like 5 minutes. Not that everything in life is about productivity, but when you have ADHD, a little bit of help is sometimes needed. And when it comes to eating, I found a few more ways to make that experience work better for me. I'm trying to have bigger breakfasts. I've started having like a big bowl of gluten-free porridge in the mornings, but it's just made me realize that my appetite in the mornings is really good. And maybe I could be taking more advantage of that, as I do like just feel better having a really filling meal to start the day off. My digestion appreciates bigger meals at the start of the day versus at the end of the day. Doing so will generally give me less grumpy gut symptoms, and it just means I get to have more like yummy, delicious food at a time of day when everyone else is often asleep, the world is still quiet. It's a very sensory friendly, and unless I'm stressed about something happening that day, like low stress time of day. I always go for a big walk with Merlin after breakfast, and I've noticed that it does really help my digestion, so maybe I should apply that to other meals in the day. I'm not necessarily going for a walk after every meal, but I am trying to fight the urge to be still and sedentary after eating lunch and dinner, and I'll just try and do an activity that, at least involves standing, walking around a bit, like hanging out, washing, making a shopping list. And I definitely notice the benefit when I do. Next is a point which I thought was so big, but actually it's pretty quick and maybe not that mind-blowing. With sandwiches and handheld stuff with breads that have that floury residue, an accommodation I've given myself is to just wrap a piece of paper towel or serviette around it so I don't actually have to touch the floury residue. That's been great. And finally, I'm a big fan of, when appropriate, using chopsticks instead of a fork to eat, to slow yourself down, especially when eating rice, because it's such a gentle food. Love rice, so yum, especially when you're gluten-free, but because it's so good I can definitely eat it too fast and then it gives me heartburn. So chopsticks, surprise surprise, are an ideal eating utensil for that. Obviously this is just one way that crip time in the kitchen can look, not the only way, but I hope some of these ideas were helpful. Can feel like one of my hobbies these days is constant optimization of the way I live, and while wanting to make the way you live work better for you is totally a noble goal, I find it helpful to check myself with that, especially with the consumer side of it, and to try to always be a bit more in the moment and appreciate what I have now and how far I've come, because these adjustments, accommodations, theoretically are infinite and they're like gonna be lifelong projects because we're always changing, so the goalposts and what we want to change will always change. So remembering some things will always be out of our control and building acceptance around those at the same time, I think, is just as important for our own sanity and feeling like we're growing in general with our ability to cope, because that muscle is very powerful too. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that. I really look forward to reading anything you want to share in the comments below that's been helping you, and I will see you in the next video.